everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at how to become a better listener in English.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and it's something that honestly, everybody struggles with, right?
Everybody.
Even native English speakers. I mean, we've all had those moments where someone's talking to us and we realize, wait a minute, I haven't heard a word they've said for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
But this is even more challenging for people who are learning English as a second language.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
So we've got a bunch of really interesting research on this today.
Yeah, we dug into a ton of studies and articles about this.
And some tips and tricks to help you really level up your listening skills.
That's right, because it's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill.
It's not just something that, you either have or you don't.
Right, it's a muscle. You got to work it out.
You can train your ears, you can train your brain.
And it's so important because if you think about it, everything we do in life involves listening in some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's at work or in our personal relationships. In school.
Or just trying to understand a movie or a TV show or a song in English.
Right, even just navigating the world, listening for announcements or directions.
Exactly. And the better listener you are, the more you're going to get out of those experiences. You're going to understand more. You're going to connect with people on a deeper level.
And you're going to learn faster, too.
Oh, absolutely. So much faster.
Think about how babies learn language, right?
Yeah.
It all starts with listening.
It's all input.
They soak up the sounds around them and their brains start making sense of it all.
And that's actually one of the things that really jumped out at me from the research.
What's that?
Was this idea that listening is the foundation of language acquisition.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's like the building block for everything else.
If you can't listen well, it's really hard to speak well, to read well, to write well.
Yeah, because you need that input to kind of create your own output.
Exactly. You got to have that raw material to work with.
So even if your ultimate goal is to become a fluent English speaker,
you really got to start with mastering your listening skills.
That's the key.
And I think one of the coolest things about the human brain is that it's incredibly good at filling in the gaps.
Oh, yeah.
There's this one study we looked at where they had people listen to a recording of a story.
Okay.
And the recording was really fast and kind of mumbled. But even though the listeners couldn't catch every single word, they were still able to understand the gist of the story.
Right. They could piece together the meaning from the context.
Yeah, their brains were like, okay, we missed a few words here and there, but we can still figure out what's going on.
It's amazing how our brains do that.
And I think we do that all the time in real life.
Yeah.
Especially when we're listening to someone who speaks really fast or has a strong accent. We might not understand every single word, but we can still follow the conversation.
We pick up on the keywords, the body language, the tone of voice.
Exactly. All those nonverbal cues are so important.
They really are.
And I think that's really encouraging for English learners. Because it means that you don't have to be perfect in your listening.
You don't have to understand every single word to start making progress.
You can still learn and grow even if you're missing some of the details.
And the more you practice, the better you'll get at filling in those gaps.
Right. And the more you listen, the easier it'll become to understand those faster speakers and those stronger accents.
Exactly. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And it's not just about understanding what's being said, it's also about how you respond.
Oh, that's so important.
The research we have really emphasizes this idea of active listening.
Yeah, active listening.
Which is about more than just passively hearing the sounds.
It's about engaging with the speaker, showing that you're paying attention.
And making sure you're really understanding their message.
And the research actually breaks active listening down into 3 key components.
Oh, interesting. What are they?
So first, you got to focus your attention. Really tune into what the person is saying.
No distraction.
Minimize distractions as much as possible.
Put your phone away.
Exactly. Put your phone away, close your laptop, look at the person who's talking.
Make eye contact.
Yeah. Show them that you're present in the moment.
Okay, so that's number 1, focus.
Yep.
What's number 2?
Number 2 is understanding the meaning.
Okay.
So this goes beyond just recognizing the words themselves. It's about grasping the speaker's intent, their emotions, the underlying message.
So reading between the lines a little bit?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and what's the third component?
But the third component is remembering.
Remembering.
Yeah, because what good is listening if you can't recall what you heard later?
Right, it's got to stick with you.
Exactly. So active listening involves making an effort to retain the information.
Okay, so those are the 3 components: focus, understand, and remember.
That's right.
And I think it's helpful to think about those components when you're listening to someone speak.
Yeah, it can help you be more intentional about your listening.
and to really make sure you're getting the most out of the conversation.
So think about yourself right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you actively listening to this deep dive?
Or are you just kind of letting the words wash over you?
Be honest.
It's okay if you're not fully focused all the time.
We all have those moments.
But just being aware of those three components can help you snap back into active listening mode.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing is that anyone can learn to be a better active listener.
Yeah, it's a skill that you can develop with practice.
Even if you're naturally more of a passive listener, you can train yourself to be more intentional about your listening.
And it's so worth it.
Oh, totally.
Because active listening can transform your relationships, your work, your learning everything.
It's really a superpower.
It is.
And speaking of challenges, I think it's important to acknowledge that English learners often face some additional hurdles when it comes to listening.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about it.
There's so much to contend with.
You've got different accents to deal with.
Yeah, British American, Australian, Canadian, and then all the regional accents within those countries.
It's like a whole world of accents.
It's a lot to process.
And then there's the speed at which people speak.
Some people talk so fast, it's like they're in a race.
It can be really overwhelming.
And then you've got slang and idioms.
Yeah, slang.
Which can feel like a whole secret language.
It's like they're speaking in code.
And then there's background noise.
Oh, yeah. The bane of every English learner's existence.
Cafes, airports, crowded streets.
It's like the universe is conspiring against you.
Trying to make it as difficult as possible to understand what's being said.
So I think it's really important for English learners to be kind to themselves.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up if you're struggling.
It's totally normal to feel overwhelmed by all these challenges.
That's a lot to juggle.
But the good news is,
there is good news.
there are things you can do to overcome these hurdles.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're going to talk about those things in just a minute.
We've got tons of tips and tricks to share.
But first, I wanted to mention one more thing that really struck me from the research.
What's that?
This idea that even if you don't understand every single word, you can still improve your listening comprehension.
That's so encouraging.
It is. Like, there was this study where they had English learners listen to podcasts.
Okay.
And they told them to focus on understanding the main idea, even if they didn't know all the vocabulary.
Interesting.
And what they found was that the learners who focused on the gist of the podcast actually improved their vocabulary faster.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Isn't that amazing? Like, it's like their brains were making connections.
They're picking up on context clues.
Yeah, and figuring out the meaning of words even without knowing the definition.
It's like a puzzle.
It is like a puzzle.
Your brain is putting the pieces together.
And I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Because it means that you don't have to wait until you have a perfect vocabulary.
To start understanding and enjoying English content.
You can start listening to podcasts and watching movies and TV shows and having conversations with native speakers.
Right.
And even if you don't catch every single word,
you're still learning and growing.
You're still training your brain to become a better listener.
And that's what matters.
Okay, so let's get practical.
Yes, let's talk strategies.
The research we dug into had some great tips for making listening easier on your ears.
Okay, right.
Like literally easier on your ears.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations was to start with slower and clearer audio.
That makes sense.
Like maybe instead of jumping right into a fast-paced action movie, you could start with a podcast designed for English learners.
Right, where the host speaks a little bit slower and enunciates more clearly.
Exactly. Or you could try an audiobook with a narrator who has a really clear voice.
Yeah, or even children's books.
Oh yeah, children's books are great.
They often have simpler vocabulary and sentence structure.
And the storylines are usually pretty engaging.
And they can be really fun to listen to.
So what do you think about that idea of starting with slower and clearer material?
I think it's a great way to build confidence and get comfortable with the sounds of English.
Yeah, it's like training wheels for your ears.
Exactly. You're giving your brain a chance to catch up.
And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the difficulty.
Move on to faster speakers, more complex vocabulary.
More challenging content.
Exactly.
Another tip that really stood out to me was using subtitles strategically.
Well, subtitles are a game changer.
I know, right?
Especially for English learners.
They can be so helpful.
They give you that visual support to connect the spoken words with their written form.
Yeah, and it can really help with comprehension.
And vocabulary building.
Absolutely, because you're seeing the words as you're hearing them.
So you're getting that double reinforcement.
Now, the research suggests starting with subtitles on And then gradually weaning yourself off as your listening improves.
So maybe start with English subtitles.
Right.
And then as you get more comfortable,
you could switch to your native language subtitles, or even try turning the subtitles off altogether for short periods of time.
Yeah, just to challenge yourself.
And see how much you can understand without that visual support.
Exactly.
I love that idea of weaning yourself off.
It's like taking off the training wheels.
Yeah, you're gradually building your listening independence.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to remember that subtitles are a tool. They're not a crutch.
They're there to help you.
So use them as needed.
Don't be afraid to use them.
But also challenge yourself to listen without them when you feel ready.
Exactly.
Another tip that I thought was really interesting was this idea of re-listening or re-watching things.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know, right?
Because you'd be surprised how much you missed the first time around.
Oh, totally.
Our brains can only process so much information at once.
Especially when we're trying to understand a new language.
So it's natural to miss some details the first time you listen to something.
Yeah, and that's where re-listening comes in.
Exactly.
Because the second time you listen,
you're already familiar with the overall story or the topic, so your brain can relax a little bit.
Yeah, and focus on those finer details.
The nuances, the pronunciation, the vocabulary.
And you might even pick up on some things you completely missed the first time.
Absolutely.
Like I know when I rewatch movies in English, I always catch new things.
It's like watching a whole new movie.
It is, and it's so satisfying.
It's really rewarding.
To feel like you're understanding more and more each time.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid to hit that rewind button.
Re-listen to those podcasts. Rewatch those TV shows.
It's a great way to reinforce your learning.
And to make sure you're really getting the most out of the content.
Okay, so we've talked about choosing the right material, using subtitles strategically, and re-listening or re-watching things. But what about when you encounter a word you don't know?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know, it can be really frustrating.
Especially if it seems like a key word.
Yeah, like if you don't understand that word, you feel like you're going to miss the whole point.
Right.
But the research we have actually suggests that it's okay to not understand every single word.
That's reassuring.
It is.
Because let's be real.
Yeah.
Nobody understands every single word they hear.
Not even native English speakers.
Exactly.
We all have those moments where we're like, wait, what was that word?
Or what did they just say?
And we have to ask for clarification.
Or just kind of nod and smile and hope nobody noticed.
So the important thing is to not get too hung up on those unknown words.
Yeah, don't let them derail you.
Instead, focus on the keywords that you do understand. And try to piece together the meaning from the context.
Be a detective.
Yeah, like a language detective.
Exactly.
Use those clues to solve the mystery.
And you might be surprised by how much you can figure out.
Even without knowing every single word.
It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You're filling in the blanks.
And as you build your vocabulary, you'll find that you understand more and more.
And those unknown words will become less and less frequent.
Exactly.
It's a process.
It is a process.
But it's a rewarding one.
So be patient with yourself.
And keep listening.
Keep learning.
And keep growing.
You got this. So we've talked about choosing the right material for listening practice, but there's just so much out there.
There really is.
Like it feels like we're in this golden age of audio content.
Totally.
Podcasts, audiobooks, streaming services. It's kind of amazing.
It's overwhelming almost.
It is a little overwhelming.
But in a good way.
In a good way.
Like you have so many options.
You can find something for any interest.
Exactly.
And that's actually one of the things that the research really emphasizes is finding material that you genuinely enjoy.
Oh, yeah, that's so important.
Like, it's got to be something that you're actually interested in.
Otherwise, you're not going to stick with it.
You're going to get bored. You're going to tune out.
Yeah, and then you're not really learning.
So think about what you like to read, about what you like to watch. What are your hobbies? What are your passions?
And then find podcasts, audiobooks, TV shows, movies that align with those interests.
Exactly.
Like if you love true crime.
There are a million true crime podcasts out there.
A million.
You're into history.
There are amazing historical audiobooks and documentaries.
You love to laugh.
Stand-up comedy podcasts.
Sitcoms, funny movies.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
So don't force yourself to listen to something you find boring.
Yeah.
Find something that sparks your interest.
And that makes you want to keep listening.
Because when you're engaged,
you learn more.
You retain more.
And you have more fun.
Exactly.
It's a win-win-win.
And speaking of audiobooks,
yeah,
the studies we looked at suggested starting with books that are specifically designed for English learners.
Okay.
or even children's books.
Oh, yeah. Children's books are great.
They often have simpler vocabulary and sentence structures, so they're easier to follow.
And the storylines are usually pretty engaging.
Yeah, like who doesn't love a good children's story?
I know I still read them sometimes.
Me too.
And there are so many great ones out there.
You can find audiobooks for pretty much any children's book these days.
Yeah, and you can adjust the narration speed if you need to.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Like if it's too fast.
You can slow it down.
And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the speed until you're listening at normal speed.
And then you can move on to more challenging books.
Exactly.
Like young adult novels, and then eventually adult fiction and nonfiction.
It's like a staircase.
Yeah, you're gradually climbing your way up.
To higher and higher levels of listening comprehension.
And don't forget about TV shows and movies.
Oh, yeah, those are great, too.
Especially for visual learners.
Because you're getting those visual cues.
The body language, the facial expressions.
For context.
All of that helps with comprehension.
And again, start with shows and movies that have clear dialogue and simpler plots.
Yeah.
Like sitcoms, animated movies.
Yeah. Reality shows.
Oh, yeah. Reality shows can be really good.
Especially for learning everyday language and slang.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty entertaining.
And then, as your listening skills grow,
you can move on to dramas, documentaries.
Films with more complex language.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to rewatch your favorite.
Oh, yeah. I love rewatching a thing.
Because each time you watch,
you pick up on new things.
You notice details you missed before.
And you understand more of the dialogue.
It's really satisfying.
It is.
Now, speaking of challenges, one thing that can be both exciting and intimidating is the sheer variety of English accents out there.
Oh, yeah.
British, American, Australian, Canadian.
And then all the regional accents within those countries.
It's a lot.
It can be really overwhelming.
But instead of being intimidated, think of it as an opportunity.
An opportunity.
To broaden your listening horizons.
Okay, I like that.
Like embrace the diversity of English.
Yeah. Celebrate the different ways that people speak.
Yeah.
So what are some practical tips for getting exposure to different accents?
One thing you can do is watch interviews with people from various backgrounds.
Okay.
Like you can find interviews with actors, musicians, politicians, athletes from all over the world.
And you can listen to news from different countries.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Like the BBC for British English.
CNN for American English.
Al Jazeera for Arabic English.
And so on.
You can even check out podcasts with hosts from different parts of the world. Like there are podcasts hosted by Australians, Canadians, South Africans, you name it.
The more you expose yourself to different accents, the more your ear will adapt.
Yeah.
And the easier it will become to understand them.
And it's okay if you don't understand everything at first.
Yeah, don't get discouraged.
It's a process.
It takes time and practice.
But the more you listen,
the better you'll get.
And you'll start to appreciate the nuances of each accent.
And you might even find yourself picking up some of the slang and pronunciation.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
It's fun to experiment with different accents.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about passive listening, like listening to podcasts, audiobooks, TV shows, movies.
But what about interactive listening?
Oh, yeah, that's where the real magic happens.
Like where you're actively engaging with the material?
Exactly.
And the studies we dug into had some fantastic exercises for really taking your listening skills to the next level.
So let's dive into those.
Okay, I'm ready.
One exercise that I find incredibly effective is called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah, have you ever heard of it?
I have. I've actually tried it before.
Oh, cool. What did you think?
It's harder than it sounds.
It is.
But it's really effective.
Yeah, so for those who haven't heard of it, shadowing is where you listen to someone speak.
Okay.
And then try to repeat what they're saying simultaneously.
So like you're their shadow.
Exactly.
Right? You're echoing their every word.
You're mimicking their pronunciation, their rhythm, their intonation.
It's like you're trying to become them.
In a way, yeah.
But just vocally.
Yeah, just with your voice.
And it really makes you pay attention to the nuances of how native speakers actually talk.
Right, because you're not just listening to the words.
You're listening to how they're saying the words.
The emphasis, the pauses, the intonation.
All of it.
And the research shows that shadowing can be incredibly helpful for improving fluency and pronunciation.
Yeah, because it helps you internalize the natural flow of the language.
And don't worry about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's more about training your ear and getting comfortable with the sounds.
Just have fun with it.
Exactly.
Another exercise that I found really helpful is dictation.
Ooh, dictation is a classic.
I know, right?
But it's a classic for a reason.
It works.
It really does.
So how does dictation work?
Well, you listen to a short audio clip.
Okay.
Pause it. And then write down everything you hear.
Everything.
Every single word.
Okay.
Now, it sounds simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually quite challenging.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to really focus on each word and how it's pronounced.
And the spelling.
Oh, yeah, the spelling can be tricky.
Especially with English.
So many silent letters and weird rules.
But the research shows that dictation can be really effective for improving listening comprehension and vocabulary.
Yeah, because it forces you to slow down.
And really pay attention to the details.
And it helps you develop your phonetic awareness.
Which is your ability to recognize the sounds of English.
Exactly.
Once you've done the dictation, the studies suggest challenging yourself to summarize what you just heard.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I know, right?
So can you explain the main idea in your own words?
Yeah, without looking back at your notes.
Can you retell the story?
Or give a brief overview of the topic?
Exactly.
And this is a great way to test your comprehension,
Mm-hmm.
to see how much you've retained.
And it's also a fantastic way to practice your speaking skills.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're essentially paraphrasing what you've just heard.
You're putting it into your own words.
And you're using your own voice.
So it's a double whammy.
It is. You're improving your listening and your speaking at the same time.
Awesome.
Now, speaking of speaking, one of the studies had this really interesting suggestion about repeating phrases you hear native speakers say.
Okay.
Like if you're watching a movie and a character says something in a way that sounds particularly natural or interesting,
Yeah.
try saying it out loud yourself.
Oh, I love that.
I know, right?
It's like you're borrowing their voice.
Yeah, and it might feel a little silly at first, but it can be a really effective way to develop a more authentic accent.
And to get those tricky phrases to roll off your tongue effortlessly.
Exactly.
And the research suggests that this kind of imitation can actually help you sound more confident and fluent when you speak.
So don't be afraid to channel your inner actor.
Yeah. You let your voice be heard.
Now, one of the things that really struck me as we were digging into all this research was how interconnected listening and speaking truly are.
Oh, they're totally intertwined.
Like, the more you listen, the better your speaking becomes.
It's like they feed off each other.
Yeah, they're like two sides of the same coin.
And the research backs that up. Studies have shown that learners who spend more time actively listening tend to develop stronger speaking skills.
Both in terms of fluency and accuracy.
So finding ways to practice both skills simultaneously is like a superpower.
Like a cheat code.
It is.
So what are some ways to do that?
Well, the sources suggest things like finding a language partner or tutor to have regular conversations with.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Having those real-life conversations is invaluable.
It's the best way to practice.
Because you're using English in a natural, authentic setting.
And you're getting feedback in real time.
Yeah, like if you make a mistake.
Your partner can correct you.
And you can learn from it.
And you can also learn from your partner's mistakes.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it's a two-way learning experience.
And even if you don't have a partner, you can still get creative with your solo practice, like repeating lines from movies and shows.
Oh, yeah.
Having imaginary conversations in English in your head.
That's a good one.
Or even just describing what you see around you out loud.
Yeah, like narrate your life.
Exactly.
The key is to make it a habit. To incorporate English listening and speaking into your daily life as much as possible.
Yeah, make it a part of your routine.
Exactly.
And that brings us to something really important that the research emphasizes.
What's that?
Patience and consistency.
Oh, yeah, those are key.
Like, improving your listening skills is a journey.
It's not a sprint.
It's a marathon.
It's about gradually building your skills over time.
And it's so easy to get discouraged.
Especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
When you might not be understanding as much as you'd like.
It can be really frustrating.
But remember, every single step forward matters.
Every little bit of progress counts.
Even if it's just understanding one new word today.
Or following a conversation a little bit better than yesterday.
Those are all signs of progress.
And they deserve to be acknowledged.
Celebrate those victories.
Yeah, give yourself a pat on the back.
Yeah, give yourself a pat on the back.
Because you're doing great.
And remember that everyone learns at their own pace.
Yeah, there's no need to compare yourself to others.
Some people might pick it up faster than others.
But that doesn't mean you're not capable.
Everyone has their own unique learning style.
And their own unique journey.
So focus on your own progress.
And be patient with yourself.
And most importantly,
enjoy the process.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Because learning English should be enjoyable.
It should be exciting.
It should be an adventure.
And it should open up a whole new world of possibilities for you.
Absolutely.
It's like climbing a mountain, right? You're working hard. You're putting in the effort. And it can be tough sometimes. But then you reach the top and you see that incredible view. And it's all worth it. It is. And in this case, The view is being able to understand English effortlessly, to watch movies and TV shows without subtitles, to have conversations with native speakers without feeling lost, to truly connect with the language and the culture.
That's the dream, right? And it's achievable.
It is. For anyone listening who's on this journey of becoming a better listener in English, remember that every effort you make, every step you take, moves you closer to that goal.
It's like you're building a bridge to fluency, one brick at a time.
And here's one final brick for you, inspired by that research we talked about earlier. Choose a movie or a TV show you absolutely love, something you could watch over and over again. And make it a habit to repeat lines from that show out loud.
Oh, I love that idea.
Try to match the actor's intonation, their rhythm, their energy.
Just like having a personal acting coach, right, in your living room.
Exactly. It's a fun way to practice pronunciation and to really internalize those natural patterns of English speech. Plus, it can help build your confidence and make you feel more comfortable speaking out loud.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Being able to communicate with others, to share your thoughts and ideas, and to experience the world in a richer, more meaningful way.
So keep practicing, keep listening, and keep celebrating those victories, big and small. You got this.
We believe in you. That's all for this deep dive. See you next time.